Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to Retro Reviews. We are continuing our franchise series on the Karate Kid films, continuing today with the Karate Kid Part 3. This, of course, is all in anticipation for Season 3 of Cobra Kai, which is a matter of days away now. Even fewer days away. They moved the release date from the 8th of January to the 1st of January, which gives us even less time to get everything done, but we will be completing the franchise, and we will be also reviewing Cobra Kai Season 1 and 2 in the lead up to 3 as well. But we are finishing the main official trilogy with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. And this was the final one that John G. Alvarson directed. We will be getting on to our next Karate Kid, which was the reboot in the mid-90s. We'll be doing that tomorrow. But this is sort of as the official face of the Karate Kid. This is the last one. But before we go into this will be a spoiler-filled discussion. We'll just go over to the socials.
Absolutely, guys. As we always say, some of our videos come very late notice, short notice. Either one of them, they've changed the release date, as Chris said. So if you want to find out when we're going to go live, when we're going to upload our videos, the best way is finding us on social media. We've got Twitter at cinema_savvy and on Facebook, Cinema Savvy. We're always telling you when we're going to be doing our content then. And as well, we are now 3 films into the Karate Kid trilogy, series, franchise, whatever you want to call it. There's a fair few of them. But if you are enjoying this, do go back and check out our old ones. And of course, do help liking it, commenting it, sharing, and of course, subscribing. We've hit one of our 2020 goals. We're going to be laying out some goals for 2021 in the near future. Obviously, we'll share some of them with you if we can. But of course, as Chris said, we've got a couple of other Karate Kid reviews. So tomorrow night, Monday the 28th, we will have our next Karate Kids. Well, not just review, it's also the next Karate Kid. That's the name of the film. So that's going to be up tomorrow night. That's going to be pre-recorded. And then I guess we can say with the release date change, we'll say that on Tuesday, we're going to have a joint Cobra Kai Season 1 and 2 review. And then we'll just say on Wednesday, we're doing a Cobra Kai Season 3 review, which we'll explain nearer the time. It will be spoiler-free. I'm going to explain that on the video and the reasons why. So there's still more Karate Kid stuff coming, Cobra Kai stuff coming, other karate things, lots of karate things. It's so strange going from like boxing straight to karate, whereas it's like, oh, that's like Rocky and Creed, and then this is like trilogy spin-off, Jaden Smith brackets, not right now, close brackets, then it's Cobra Kai back to the original trilogy. So it's a bit all over the place, but we're here, as Chris said, to do the Karate Kid Part 3, which another one I've seen for the very first time today, and I had a lot of fun with as an initial entrance point. I'm doing the same with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, speaking of the rest of the franchise, I discovered today that there was a 1-season-long animated series that was released as well, which we're not going to review, by the way, just putting that out there. I think it was like 13 episodes. But yeah, so Karate Kid Part 3, I think I mentioned this last week when we did, or whenever it was, that we've been reviewing a lot of films recently. I'm losing track of time. Whenever we reviewed Part 2, I think I've watched Part 2 and Part 3 the same amount of time. So as of this rewatch, I think I've watched them 3 times a piece now. The first one was always the one that I watched the most, and then it was sort of a diminishing returns as the franchise went on. The box set that I have, the DVD box set, it has all 3 in one case. But 3's weird, and I think that even the audiences were getting a bit disenchanted with this franchise. The second one made the most amount of money. I think it made like 115 mil at the box office, 15 more than the first film did. But then this one had like a massive drop-off. This came out 3 years after Part 2, and the highest it grossed was about 40 mil. So huge drop-off since the second one. And this came out in 1989 as well, and I'm trying to think of some other big films that came out then. You had Batman. I think you had Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade as well. So they're definitely 2 big ones. So I don't know if this came out. I'm unsure of the release date. I don't know if this came out around about that time. So other audiences were watching those films. And maybe the audience wasn't there anymore for the Karate Kid. But I still enjoy elements of 3. But I mean, we're going to do a review in a minute. We're going to pre-record it for tomorrow. This isn't the worst Karate Kid film in like sort of like the main franchise. But certainly out of the main trilogy, it's my least favorite. But there are still elements I enjoy. It's very silly. It's very cartoony in some respects, and we'll get onto that when we talk about the villains, because the villains in this are by far the biggest takeaway for me in this film and the thing that I have the most fun with. But it's the story's a lot weaker, and for the most part, it feels like a bit of a retread. It's bringing some of those familiar faces in from Cobra Kai. It's continuing that story. It ends in another tournament very similar to the first one. And in terms of the character of Daniel, it doesn't really do anything new with him either. I kind of like the angle that he's almost tending towards the dark side a little bit and he's getting a bit more aggressive. I don't mind that take on it, but if I'm going to go into it with like Daniel as well, and this is sort of general overall opinions at the moment, Daniel is so unlikable in this film, and that is a huge knock-on effect for me with my enjoyment with this film. You know, his friendship, his relationship with Mr. Miyagi is still great, and that is still the foundation. And when he does get angry at Mr. Miyagi, you do feel the emotion there because you've gone through a whole trilogy of seeing these together, and you don't want to see them be angry at each other, and you don't want to see Mr. Miyagi upset. But I don't know if it's how the character's written. I don't know if it's how he's played in this, how it's performed. But he's just thoroughly unlikable, and that is, I don't know why. I don't know if he's if the actor's just become disenchanted with the character, but there's a disconnect there, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just how it was written in the story, but that did have a big impact on me on the enjoyment of this film.
Yeah, this one stands out straight away from the other two, especially Daniel. Obviously, he's the main character, and you mentioned that sort of dark side thing. It's that really traditional, like, here's a hero journey, here's that, are they going to turn? And you don't normally get that in the third film, in that sort of thing. That's normally like a middle chapter type thing, and it's going back to what you said the other day, which has stuck with me. But this one feels like it should have been Karate Kid 2, and Karate Kid 2 feels like it should have been Karate Kid 3, because this one is way more involved to the original. Obviously, it's got the Cobra Kai stuff, we've got the new villains, you've got the whole it's an arc point of the story is he is now the Cobra Kai student. That's a key concept from this, and I liked that stuff, but I don't know if it's the writing or the performance rate. It's just flat. It doesn't work. It's predictable. And also, I think when you've got Mr. Miyagi, who's become this beloved character, you don't really feel upset for him. You think, oh, Daniel's being like a dickhead or something, but you know that he's going to be back fine at the end. Not that it's predictable, not that it's a tried trope, but you just can't do that to someone like Mr. Miyagi, if that makes any sense. And it's building up to it, and it doesn't feel wasted because you still get great moments, but it just feels like, I think that sort of flirtation with evil isn't really something that the actor probably did too well, and I don't think it was written too well. It was just too easy, like, oh, you won't teach you this, I will teach you this. And then suddenly you're breaking people's noses in clubs, and the whole like, what have I done type thing. It's very over the top, and I just don't think it works, especially as the ending of this trilogy. Yeah. Granted, now with Cobra Kai, obviously it's not the end of the series. Obviously, we had a spin-off, 2 spin-offs, I guess you could politely say, or whatever they want to call the Jaden Smith one, but I don't know. There's something off. There's something off about Daniel in this, and I think, again, going back to that second one, you've got that almost father-son relationship of, no, I will travel to Okinawa with you, I will be there with you at all points, and then this one, it just feels so quick that he would just be like, no, I'm done here. Like, it felt too quick, and I think you can certainly tell the actor's age the most in this one as well. I know it is only 5 years after the first film on paper, but he looks a lot older. He doesn't look like he looks really young anyway in the first one, and then in this one he either looked too old to be compared to, especially for 9 months later on paper where they are. Something just doesn't sit right about that for me.
Yeah, and I don't want to rag on the guy and his body shape. He's a little bit chubbier in this. I couldn't place it. I was like, I don't know why. Just maybe it's because he's sort of maturing. He's getting a little bit fuller in the face. I'm not sure, but the age is still kind of off, because that he's pushing 30 as of the recording of this film, and like he still does look really young, but he doesn't look young enough, as you mentioned, to be 1 year on after the events of the first film. I think inherently what this came down to was that the franchise had just ran out of gas. They didn't really know where to go. I'd even say the second film was a stretch as well. And, obviously we did our review on part 2. We still thoroughly enjoy 2. And the direction that it went in, it was very different. But the first one's inherently a Daniel LaRusso story, coming of age, typical 80s teen kind of film. The second one went in the direction of exploring Miyagi's character some more and where he came from and his origins. After you've done that, what do you do? What else is there to do? You go back and, we need to find out what happened to Kreese, and that's exactly what we do in this. The beginning of the film starts off with his journey and where he goes to, and he goes to one of his old war buddies, Terry Silver. I need to get the name of the actor here. Terry Silver, played by Thomas Ian Griffith. Now, he is the saving grace of this film for me.
Yeah.
Terry Silver is... This is like when you're getting into the territory of like Rocky 3, Rocky 4, where it's so over the top and it's so cartoony, and he feels probably like one of the bad guys from this animated series that I only just discovered that happened in Karate Kid. The way he plays it, he's just hamming it up. He's chewing the scenery. Following on from like Wonder Woman 2, we said that Pedro Pascal was the only one who looked like he was having fun. It's kind of the same here as well. I don't know if he realizes how stupid it is. If you break down the plot of this film, especially surrounding the villains and who he is, and he's like this millionaire, billionaire, whatever, is some kind of like oil tycoon or this huge businessman, very, very wealthy, who was once in the Vietnam War with Kreese. And I think Kreese mentions that he saved his life a bunch of times. As a favor, he bought him a karate dojo and got him set up, which was Cobra Kai. And then because Kreese says, like, I want you to get revenge on this teenager, he's like, okay, I'm going to devote all my efforts to this now. Everything that I do, all of my money is going to be on revenge. He has this whole like monologue as well where he says that I'm all about revenge now. He wants to create a chain of karate dojos in Cobra Kai's name so that everyone taking up karate will only know the Cobra Kai name. This massive monopoly. It's crazy. It's a crazy concept for a villain, but I don't care. It works. It works in the same vein as when I watch a Rocky 3 or Rocky 4. I don't care. I know that it kind of started... Well, granted, Rocky probably started way more serious than Karate Kid ever did. But it's great. And when the rest of the film isn't working for me, like you don't really care about the... It's not even a love interest, really, with her character, with Daniel LaRusso. You don't care about that. Daniel's being annoying. The Miyagi stuff's fine for what it is. That is the stuff where I'm like, this is why I will throw in Karate Kid 3 and go back through this film to watch all of the scenes with Terry Silver in. It's brilliant.
Yeah. From his entrance, this is going to be one that I keep comparing to like a South Park character. That's a compliment. That's nothing else. It's one of them that he's so cartoonish. He's exceptional. He's standing out from the rest. The only thing that throws me, and I can live with it how over the top and funny it is. So he fought in Vietnam with Kreese. Now, I'm not going to go off the actor's age. The Vietnam War finished when the actor was 13. And the only thing that threw me was that he doesn't look old. He doesn't with the sort of Vietnam veterans, you think like they look older, but I was like, this guy looks about 30, but he runs a dojo. He's kicking ass. He's too much fun for me to even want to care about that. I was just happy to buy into this pure evil villain that this old man and this boy have ruined my friend's reputation, and I'm here to. What did I message you to say that I'm gonna like stop my life for 2 weeks to end this whole man's career? Yeah. It's basically that meme, and I was like, you know what? If you're gonna do a villain, just get it out of the way like that. It was so funny. You like him from the first moment. You keep saying the bubble bath with the phone, even when he's training him and he's fighting him. It's something about his eyes and his intensity where you just want more and more and more from him. And he was just incredible in it. I think pairing him with Kreese. Because in the first one, Kreese is the grizzled veteran that's tough as nails, and they're all his students, and they're going to follow the book ABC, kill, no mercy, all that stuff. And obviously, what I liked, as someone that hasn't seen Cobra Kai that's heading into it actually tonight, Cobra Kai clearly expands this world. And it's like, this guy bought Kreese, the Cobra Kai dojo. This guy is really the architect behind it all, and he's there like, what's your ultimate villain plan? I'm going to open 15 of them. And I just loved it being it's because it's petty, but it's my kind of petty that I really enjoy. That even from this one's perspective, he just adds to the whole Karate Kid thing. That it's about learning that backstory for Kreese. It's about learning about other things that have happened in this time and seeing him go out of his way for everything for a mate. It's quite respectable. It's insanely over the top to the point that one of the first shots is Kreese going to the airport, and as he enters the other two come out from the trip from Japan. Which is like, I don't mind stuff like that, but it was at least they said it from the get-go. This is an outright revenge film, and we're going to get it, and you know where it's going to head. But it's just about having fun because it is weaker than the other two, without a shadow of a doubt, story-wise, character-wise. But there's something about these villains that are just far more interesting than Chosen from the second one. I'm not going to compare it to Johnny because the first one was pretty much perfect, and Kreese is ultimately the villain from that. But it was just like, what's that sort of, you know, Star Wars prequel type thing? Like, what's going to be over the top and more entertaining than arguably the better things? And this guy absolutely steals it. And as a villain, he feels threatening when he is fighting. He feels like he probably could kick
he's probably the best fighter in the entire franchise that we've actually seen, like, master of his craft. And I think the actor is a martial artist as well, which shows. But yeah, in a film called Karate Kid, I've never really had that fear of anyone, you know, as like a master fighter. Even when you've got Miyagi, and I know that's like Pat Morita, and, you know, he was getting up there, he's not going to be as agile. But yeah, no, he's imposing, but he is a pantomime villain. Like, there's moments where he'll sort of like whisper something into Daniel's ear and then like run around the corner and like listen in for his reaction. And he's got like this evil sort of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the camera. Yeah, or smile to the camera. Kreese comes back in this as well, played once again by Martin Kove. But I like that they keep Terry Silver definitely at the forefront as the villain.
Yeah.
Sort of like the main overarching villain, because we had Kreese as the main villain. It's good to sort of tie up his story and see where he went to and what happened. But we get that resolution at the beginning, and then he's just sort of like out of the movie and comes back at the very, very end of the film. And even then, you were saying before we hit record, he's basically just laughing at all of Terry Silver's lines. He doesn't actually have any lines of dialogue. He's just there to sort of hype man Terry Silver. There is another villain as well, which serves as the villain for Daniel LaRusso, and that's kind of been the way that pretty much all the Karate Kid films have gone so far. You had Johnny, you had Chosen, who was sort of the villain counterparts for Daniel, and then you had Kreese and Sato as the villains for Miyagi. And it goes in a similar way here. So Mike Barnes, again, and like Terry Silver, a character that I'd love to see come back into Cobra Kai at some point. It's weird where Rocky, I'm sort of selective with the characters that I'd like to see come back. We keep saying like, oh, it'd be great to see Clubber Lang come back and like Mr. T and all these characters, but you have to draw the line somewhere. Cobra Kai, just bring the whole cast back. Just bring everyone who featured in all of those first three films. Just bring it back. Even Hilary Swank from the fourth one, bring her into it as well. I really don't care. But Mike Barnes, I guess he's serviceable. He's fine. I don't think he's as good as Johnny. I don't even think he's as good as Chosen. He probably has more lines than Chosen, but Chosen just had more of that personality and that edge for me in the second film. I think he's fine, but I think that the way that he gets beaten at the end of the film is very easy. He is the ultimate champion, essentially, the one who's going to go head to head and absolutely destroy. He is kind of like a henchman of Terry Silver. Like, Terry Silver enlists him and says, I just want you to make this teenager hurt for X amount of rounds of this karate tournament, and in exchange I will give you, well, he originally says 25% of the revenue of all of his gyms, and then he negotiates and says he wants 50% of the overall gross of it. But he's fine. But the way he gets beaten at the end, he just gets slightly confused when Daniel starts doing the kata, and he just goes, he's this great fighter, and then all of a sudden he's looking around like, I don't know what to do. What? And then he gets beaten. So he doesn't have I think it's because he's kind of overshadowed by Silver in this film. Maybe that's the thing. Like, Chosen, I love Sato's character, but I was always for Chosen in that film. And I think he got enough screen time both from Kreese and Johnny in that first film. But in this one, it's like Terry Silver is the front and center, and then Mike Barnes comes into it like halfway through, and he's just there to have a fight with Daniel at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's where it doesn't work as well. The final fight is that, you know, in the first one, you've got obviously the rules. You're not going to touch each other, not until the day of the tournament, and it's the build up to that final fight. Second one is, you know, it's going to come eventually. They're going to have a fight and it'll be fine. And this one is, I think, is there 3 fights before they get to the ending? And obviously, what you really have is the probably the best scene from it is before the tournament is the fight in the Cobra Kai dojo. That felt like, oh, we're getting a Rocky V sort of street fight ending. And it was like in their home dojo away from the tournament. But no, we still get the tournament. The tournament feels like an aftermath because we know what's going to happen. I still enjoyed it more for the whole, like, Terry Silver. How's he going to get everyone inside? He's going to open 15 Cobra Kai gyms for everyone to use. And it's just incredible because he's also sat there, like, telling this guy, like, just the tactic is get the point and then get a penalty by doing a low blow or something and just repeat and repeat till it's 0-0. Again, not to question logistics. You'd think they'd have a maximum penalty points in place before disqualification, because what's the score? Probably 4-4, but or 4-0, but probably with penalties down to 0. And I like that that's Terry Silver's goal, was just do a public humiliation. And it is working, but it is right. It's so strange at the ending is him getting confused by the sort of weird peaceful moves, and then he gets battered, and it just cuts to black and ends. And I think tying in of the ending too, it's very odd. I mean, I know that the first 3 have finished on like freeze frame after fights 1, with this one being the ending of a trilogy. Maybe they didn't plan for this to be the ending of the trilogy or the ending of the story so far, but that having a cut to fade felt a bit too forced for this one, because it did feel like a finale as such to like the Cobra Kai drama, to Miyagi, to Daniel, but at the same time it just didn't feel like a finale because it just chose to end again. But I enjoyed Mike Barnes. The whole point of him, this photo of him in the magazine, like it just looks like a meme in the making. You know, it's like this is like the most dangerous one. The fact he's like putting him on like a wooden body and he's just pulling this ridiculous face. He's threatening, but it's that kind of schoolboy, cartoonish, you know, it's a henchman to the main villain, and that's the point of it. But everything's about Terry Silver, and I think to me the film really ends when Miyagi batters him and everyone else.
You mentioned that like the whole street fight in Rocky 5. I would have been fine if it ended in that dojo. I think that would have been a really cool different ending. That would have been a nice different dynamic to it. It's just all of them together, no referees, no points, no nothing, just fighting there. And I think it would bring that intensity of the end of the second film, where it's all about survival in this moment. It's not, it's away from a tournament. Then going back to the tournament, it ties it into the first one, but it did feel too close to that one. I'm also confused about the rules of karate. It doesn't even seem to get its own rule straight, because they say in this no face contact, otherwise it's a penalty. I was like, well, didn't Daniel LaRusso win by face contact in the first Karate Kid film? I was like, did they change the rules after that incident 1 year ago? Like, I don't know. And I think they make mention of that in Cobra Kai as well, that it was an illegal move that he won with. I'm not sure. But yeah, I guess if it was the end of a trilogy, it doesn't really end conclusively. It's just kind of, we've told the story, done, freeze frame, go to credits, which is sort of like how all of these go. Even the next one as well, the next Karate Kid does something similar to that too. Maybe if they did intend for this to be the last one, you could have had like an epilogue scene where they're, you know, back to Miyagi's house or Miyagi's garden or something, just one final sparring session between the two of them. That would have been cool. The music, so of course, like Bill Conti returning once again to provide the score with this. I'd say that this, alongside the first film, are probably my favorite scores. I think that this one's a lot more powerful. I think there are scenes where the soundtrack to this thing carries certain scenes that might not be there from the story or the writing or the characterization. And like tying into favorite moments as well, I guess there's the where Miyagi is teaching Daniel the kata that they're practicing, and there's this beautiful sort of like helicopter shot where it pans back from them on the ridge and the music kicks in, sort of like the main theme kicking in. And this is the interesting thing with you, because as you said, when you watched the first one, everything was more or less new to you. You weren't really picking up on the music. As you've gone sequel to sequel, you're getting these main themes coming back in and everything, which make it powerful. The music in the end as well, in the final fight. I do come around to the film more in that final tournament, though, actually. And I think that just goes with the strength of that bond between Daniel and Miyagi. And even when it's a subpar film and there's not much going on in it, that's still intact. And that's still intact from the first one. And Pat Morita absolutely nails it as Mr. Miyagi. And, you know, when he's scared and he's getting afraid, it reminds me of which Rocky film is it? I think it's Rocky 3, isn't it? Where he's on the beach. He goes like, all right, I'm afraid. You want me to admit it? Yeah. I'm afraid. And he's talking to Adrian. And Miyagi just tells him to focus. And the bit where he holds Miyagi's hand up at the end as well to sort of share in that victory, it's a really nice moment. So, and that's the thing with these films, even when it is subpar and it's not great, and I will admit that as a film, this probably isn't like good, like necessarily a good film, I do have enjoyment with it. And there's enough of those moments where I can just scrape it and give it a free pass. Some other music in it as well. The actual soundtrack of it doesn't have as many hit songs in it. As I mentioned, the second one, you had that Peter Cetera song, which was a hit single. The first film had a lot of pop music in it as well, because it was more of a teen coming of age film. This one sort of like has two notable ones, which I really enjoy. There's a song called High Wire, which plays in the club scene where he punches the guy in the face, called by Glenn Medeiros, which I really like. And then there's the end credits song, which is by Little River Band, called Listen to Your Heart, which is very, very cheesy, but I enjoy that as well. But other than that, there's not sort of like any music that you gravitate towards or that comes through strong in the film, really. And that's it for music for me, really. I like the score. It's another solid one by Conti.
Yeah, the music. I didn't really notice the main songs. I did in the next Karate Kid though, strangely. But it's again, you mentioned that shot. I think as these films have gone on, you can appreciate the soundtrack, and it's always when they're training with one another. That feels like it's when it's strongest. It's the most sort of traditional, but it also accompanies what you're seeing on screen the best. That's what I've always felt with these. And again, their training montages, when they do get them in this, is great. I wish there was some kind of like evilish Cobra Kai theme. Maybe that's a bit more to the over the top Rocky Drago stuff I really like. But the music's fine in this. And yeah, it's a strange one because it's like a fun thing. Macchio, I loved it, as you said, lifting his arm in the air because it's his prep talk that wins it for him. And the whole purpose of this film is, the student that abandons the master, then just go back to him because the master was right all along. I mean, to fall out over him because he doesn't want to enter into a tournament to win again, it's straight away like a selfish attitude thing. Obviously, it feels like more like Daniel from the first one. That's what makes it more bizarre going back to the second one, that in the second one, he's far more mature as an individual. Then in the third one, he's completely immature again. Even forcing the Banzai shop onto him. Not Banzai, sorry. What's the name of the... There's a Banzai.
Yeah, the Bonsai tree.
Sorry, Bonsai. Yeah, even all that stuff felt a bit weird, and the abseiling and the planting of the tree stuff. And
so much of the drama of this film is based on abseiling down a cliff and saving a bonsai tree. That's like the whole second act of this film. I guess we could talk about her character as well. She's so irrelevant to this film, I even forgot to talk about her. I didn't even put her in the plan that we're going off here. So Jessica Andrews' character, played by Robin Lively. So it feels like they're about to tee up. Oh, I mean, Kimiko gets written out again very quickly, right from the beginning. Like, oh, is Kimiko coming over to visit with you? No, she got a like a dance scholarship, and she's going to go do that. I'm like, okay. And yeah, it doesn't really go into a romance. It kind of tees it up. I think her character's only really in the film to give Daniel a character to talk with, similar age to him and interact with. That's really all she serves. She nips it very much in the bud, like they go on a date, and then she says, well, I've recently broken up with my boyfriend and we're on a break, but we're going to give it another shot. So this isn't going to go anywhere. Let's just be friends. And then she basically friend zones him straight after that. They're in a handful of scenes together, and then she just disappears out of the film before the ending. She's not even present at the tournament. There's no input from her. Completely irrelevant character to me. I think you could have very, very, very easily just cut her out of the film.
Yeah, and the mom no showing again as well. Wasn't.
Oh, she has one scene in this film.
Oh, sorry, no, she does. She's at the start, isn't she?
She's looking after his uncle Louis, who's got emphysema.
It's the love interest. It's weird because it's like, oh, like that's not happening. Okay, that's fine. They're just friends, but she's moving home anyway. And it was all weird. I was like, so is she going to be in this or not? And it just feels like, okay, we couldn't get I forgot a name from the boys. We couldn't get Ali to come back for the third one.
Elizabeth
and the second one.
Yeah,
that's it. We can't get Elizabeth Shue back for the third one, so we're just going to have another like insert 20-year-old from the 80s here character just for him to talk to for guidance. And it is a very odd one. Even the club fight when that guy's like, I want to take you home, and he punches him in the nose and she falls out with him. And yeah, she doesn't really add to it. I don't think it's her fault. I think it's more the writing of it. They obviously needed a support character for him, and that's the best they could probably come up with without making it a formal love interest.
And the weird thing is as well, it's the same writer as all three. But this doesn't feel like the same writer that even handled the second one. The second one did have some like good mature moments in it. This one just feels very, very silly. It doesn't even.
He's
feel
having
like
too much fun.
Yeah,
I spent ages thinking that the villain was called John Silver. I was like, this is like a Long John Silver reference, isn't it? And you like, no, it's Terry. I was like, okay. But would it surprise you if he was a pirate? No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe that's what we should campaign for: Long John Silver in Cobra Kai. Make it happen. But as like a final thought on this film, I thought it was as a film itself. It's not great. As a Karate Kid film, it's okay, but it was more intriguing. Taking the insight into Cobra Kai, taking insight into the dojos, into the other training people, and those minor characters. Sort of what happened to them after the first film. Now, it doesn't really mean it should be a film, but it was. But it's also given me one of the most entertaining villains I've seen in a long time. So I have mad respect for it for that. But overall, I just thought it was just fine. I couldn't imagine them doing a fourth one. I think it was right to stop with this. It felt like enough of a finale to close with. I don't think there's anything left for the character of Daniel. Obviously, ironically, now I've got 3 seasons of Cobra Kai to watch. I'm going to find out what happens. But yeah, I thought it was fun, and I'm just going to leave it at that. That's probably the politest way of saying it.
Yeah, I think for me as well, like the franchise had just run out of steam at this point, which was fair enough. Like even to get past the first one and keep a story going with this thing, fair play to them. There are elements of this film that I do enjoy. It is my least favorite of the trilogy, and it's probably one that I won't come back to all that much, but I do get enjoyment from the villains mostly, who are very silly. Definitely of sort of like 80s movie villains. Terry Silver's up there as one of my favorites. I really hope to see him come back in Cobra Kai at some point, whether it's this series or next series. But we've just had some comments from Sim Hayer as well, talking about the love interest. To be honest, all the love interests were were super irrelevant. I don't know. I think Ali had her place in the first film, maybe. It was maybe just as a sort of like, oh, Daniel gets the girl at the end, it's sort of like victory. And the second one maybe was slightly irrelevant. I'll agree with that. Sim Hazel says the issue with the franchise was, other than the core characters, the orbital characters never really had any weight to them. Yeah, and that's the thing. And we talked about this going into Karate Kid 2 as well, where nothing feels built upon, really. Yes, you do sort of have like the overarching story of the Cobra Kai, and you get to tie up that one loose end, which I guess was where did Kreese go to, what happened with him, and that's really what this film serves to sort of explain that. But the new characters that were introduced into 2, well, I mean, you don't have Ali or many of the other characters coming back from the first one into the second. You have these new characters, new relationships established in the second film. Doesn't have a payoff, doesn't continue into the third one. So each film sort of picks up new baggage and then just dumps it right at the beginning of the next film. But it's fine for what it is. It's a very simple film. It does feel very cheap, I will say. It almost feels like a made-for-TV film compared to the other 2. But I still enjoy this one. And this sort of, for 5 years, capped off the franchise until 1994, when Pat Morita would return once again, one more time for Mr. Miyagi in the next Karate Kid, which might be one of the worst film titles I've ever seen. Tell it like it is, why don't you? But yeah, I think I've pretty much said everything I can on this. So now we want to hear from you. Let us know what you think of Karate Kid Part 3. As well as the rest of the trilogy up until this point. We are not done with the franchise yet. As I mentioned, we will be going live tomorrow. That's Monday the 28th at 8 p.m. GMT for our review of the next Karate Kid, which will finish our bulk of the main franchise, the main sort of Mr. Miyagi franchise. There was, of course, the remake, which we will be getting to, but time is ticking on and we need to get to Cobra Kai, so we will probably be reviewing that film after we've gone through all of Cobra Kai. We've got a lot of episodes to watch. We've got 3 seasons to watch, and we need all the extra time in the world we can. So that's what we're going to do. Big thank you to Sim for jumping in towards the end of this review and commenting along. We really want to open this up to you guys as well and get a conversation going. And of course, if you want to find other times that we will be going live for stuff to do with Karate Kid, as well as our other reviews that we have, go onto our social media, which is Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. We do have some merchandise at the TeePublic link in the description down below. So feel free to check that out for any t-shirt designs that you might want to pick up. We're about to pre-record the next Karate Kid right now. That, as I said, will be coming tomorrow, 8 p.m. So if you enjoyed this one, please tune into that one as well. And then we'll be getting into Cobra Kai, into the good stuff. So until next time.